All of the wines that we make come from the property that my grandparents bought in 1939. My grandfather was an agronomy professor. In the 1930s, the wine industry in Napa was nothing like it is today. Some of the first vineyard in Napa was on parts of our property. Some of it was planted by 1860. All of it was planted by 1880. And then following phylloxera and Prohibition, there was a long lull in grape production there. So through the 40s and 50s and 60s, raising sheep and cattle was a much bigger business than grapes. So what my dad and my uncle grew up with there was some pasture, a small prune orchard, and a small vineyard. Most of what we have today is really the result of a lifetime of work of my uncle. He grew up there, he lived there since the time he was 3, and really has invested all of his time and energy for many, many years into developing and maintaining the vineyard, developing and building the winery company. He also, I think, represents a very rare breed in Napa today, as a guy who grew up as an authentic farmer in Napa, who's been there all his life, who's been through the changes in Napa, who's seen it grow from a place of sheep and cattle and prunes to what it is today. My father moved away from the vineyard after high school, and that was a time again where it was a difficult place to make a living, and his older brother still lived there. So when I was born, we lived in Davis in California and then moved to Alberta in Canada when I was 2. My dad went to the University of Alberta there. I started working back in the vineyard when I was in high school, and in 1988 and 89 spent a full year working in the vineyard. And at that point, I knew the vineyard would be part of my future. We weren't making wine at that time. There wasn't much opportunity career-wise for me there. So I stayed involved on and off for the next 10 or 15 years and started managing the vineyard full-time in January of 2001. Wine's a very agricultural product, and what I like the most about what I do is the farming side of it. I like to be out in the vineyard. I like to be out in the vineyard with my dog. I like to be, working on the vines and looking at that stuff. It's different all the time. Every year provides new challenges, not just from a growing point of view, but from the point of view of wine sales. I do think our wines have a distinct style. I would like to think that our winemaking style is not very heavy-handed. We certainly feel that the vineyard is the most important part of what we do, and we'd like to express that in the wines. What we put in the Hendry label is our best wine. HRW is our second label, also from our estate fruit, but often if we're developing young vineyards, we will bottle that in the HRW label. With young vineyards, you can make incredible wine. The grapes can be very high quality, but they're less predictable. And the HRW label is one that we hope will serve as an introduction to our other wines. We feel if you buy a bottle of HRW Cabernet or HRW Zinfandel and you enjoy it, then you'll probably enjoy our Hendry even more. The Mike and Molly Zinfandel is another family project, but it comes from a vineyard that my wife's family owns. The Moore Vineyard, the R.W. Moore Vineyard, was planted in 1905. It's one of California's oldest and best known Zinfandel vineyards. There's a perception that old vineyards are wonderful, and I think that that's true, but I wouldn't necessarily say that the vineyards are wonderful because they're old. I'd be more likely to say that the vineyard is old because it's wonderful. So only if you consistently get something really good do vineyards ever get to be that age. And this is a case where those vines and that rootstock and that soil type is just in an incredibly good balance where it is. Our biggest concern, perhaps my biggest concern is not just how to be the most successful today, but how to be relevant and successful 30 years from now. And I think one of the ways to achieve that is to consistently provide quality and value. I feel like we have a very good vineyard. I don't think I'd trade our property for any property in Napa. And I think, again, it's not unique, but it's what we offer As a family-owned and operated business, with our level of connection to the land and time is very rare in Napa, and I think a lot of people appreciate that. I think it connects with a certain consumer that we've been there for a long time. We still have our hands and our feet in the dirt, and we make the wine ourselves, and that's yeah, it's, as I said, it's important to us, and I think it shows in our wines.